Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of Rabbi Jeff's Pirkei Avos, where we attempt to understand the meaning behind the instructions of our sages and how it's relevant to our lives today. We do this, of course, using the thoughts of our teachers before us and try to make them applicable to our times. Feel free, please, to contact me with any comments or questions at rjfromlj@aol.com. Today's Mishnah is Perek Aleph, Mishnah Hey, Chapter 1, Mishnah 5.
Yossi ben Yochanan, who is the pair of Yossi ben Yoezer, Ish Yushalayim Omer says, Beischa Pasuch Levacha, that your home should be opened to the multitudes, V'aniyim b'nei Beisecha, and the poor should be b'nei Beisecha, they should be part of your home, part of your family, V'altar b'sicha im ha'isha, and you should not have much conversation with a woman. V'ishta amru, that's talking about your wife, and the reason that we know that the Mishnah says it's talking about your wife is because it says im ha'isha. It doesn't say im isha, it says im ha'isha. So kal v'chomer b'eish chaveru, how much more so with the wife of your friend? Mikan omru chachamim, from here Rabbi say, kol amar b'sicha im ha'isha, that anybody who has increased sicha with a woman, gorem ro'a la'atzmo, it causes bad to himself. Baitum divrei Torah causes batala, it causes disconnection from the words of Torah, and sofo yoresh Gehenim. In the end, he's going to inherit Gehenim. So first of all, what do the three pieces have to do with each other? The Bartanura says a few interesting comments here. The Bartanura says that your house should be open l'revacha, like the house of Avraham Avinu, which was open on every side, that people were able to come in from every direction. If anybody it was built on a crossroads, so that there was openings in every way, and that's that people can come into your house wherever they need to. So that's what it means. The house should be open l'revacha. And then v'aniyim b'nei beischa, the poor people should be members of your house. That he says a fascinating comment. He says that they should be members of your household. The way he learns it is that they should be your servants. No, they should be your house help. You should hire Jews to be your house help. And he says the words explicitly. He says, Mutav shianu yisrael min chasav v'lei zera knana orer. It's better that a Jew benefits from your money and property rather than zera Canaan, somebody from the offspring of Canaan that is orer, that is cursed. So he sees this whole thing of Yebescha, of Yuaniyim b'nei Beisecha, he sees it as being a piece of advice to have Jewish workers instead of non-Jewish workers. And then the third thing, where it says that Al Tabasich and the Isha, so again, it's talking about your wife, and the reason that we know it is because it says Ha-Isha. But then he comments and he says, what's the reason? Shelo Yavo Lidei Hergel Aveira. He says the reason is that there's talking to a woman who's a nida, a woman who is a menstruant woman. Knows your wife who is a menstruant, you shouldn't have sicha with her, because it's going to come to hergel avera. You're going to transgress the laws of family purity, the laws of the harchakos, of the separations between husband and wife, and then you're going to end up committing a transgression. And then he explains that applies obviously to your wife, and how much more so to other people. But it seems that that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. The Mishnah is talking about even a woman who is tar, a woman who is pure, and that it's saying that you shouldn't be tar b'sicha. So it becomes a little difficult to understand what the Bartanura is saying, that it's dafka ishto nida. Let's take a look at these three pieces, because the three pieces that are in the Mishnah are complicated. Let's start from the very beginning. Yibeischa beis vad, your house should be a beischa pasuach l'revacha, a house that it's open to the street, basically open to people. So that's a very difficult thing, because we know that a house is meant to be a protective thing. The reason we put a mezuzah on the door, so that we remember that when we come into the house, we have to leave the stuff of the street behind. It's a boundary, it's a barrier. A bayis, a house, is meant to be able to demarcate, to be able to differentiate between what's going on outside and what's going on inside. And therefore you have to leave everything on the outside. And then when you go out from the house, the mezuzah is a reminder to take God with you, to take the good stuff, and to bring that with you from the house, and to bring that outside into the rest of your life. But we're not trying to live lives that's open to the street. We want to be private. And we don't just want to be private because we put up curtains on our windows, but we want to be private because we don't want the street to invade our home. We don't want the noise of the street. When I say the noise of the street, I don't mean the noise of power tools. I'm talking about the noise of the street, all of the values that are out there in the street that we're trying to filter out. That's why we have doors. Our doors filter out all that stuff. We don't want that in our houses. So why would you say that a Jewish value, an ideal is that it should be pasuch l'rvacha? If you wanted to tell me that I should have a lot of guests, and that's a Jewish value, so then tell me have a lot of guests. That's not what it says, though. It says it's a specific language of pasuch l'rvacha. It has to be opened up to the masses, to the multitudes, and bring people into your house. Why would you want to do that? That's problem number one. Problem number two is, again, what's the connection between the three pieces here? What does your house being like the house of Ram, poor people working for you, and don't speak to women, what do those three pieces have to do with each other? Problem number three is that what is aniyim b'nei beischa, that the poor people, notwithstanding the Bartenura's understanding of this, what does that mean? If it's telling me that we want you to give tzedakah, I want you to have poor people in your house, so tell me that poor people in the house. Tell me to give tzedakah. And if you want to tell me to give tzedakah, put that somewhere else. Put that above a basra. Put that in a different tractate. Don't put that here. It's got nothing to do with Pirkei Avos. It's not an ethical thing. To give tzedakah is of course an ethical value, but it's not something that Pirkei Avos has to talk about. Remember, we talked about that. If it's in Pirkei Avos, that means that it's something that's fundamental to our existence as Jews, not necessarily from a halachic point of view. Anything that you see in Pirkei Avos that looks like a halacha, I told you there's one place where it talks about that you have to be careful with davening and don't make your davening a fixed practice. That is not talking about having kavanah during davening, because that doesn't belong here. That belongs in brachas. So if it's here because there's some ethical, there's some value-based thing that's being taught to us. What is that suggestion that's coming through that aniyim should be b'nei beisecha? Okay. Al tarbe sicha ima yisha. Let's think about that for a second. It says, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbin Besimcha. What does that mean? When Adar comes, we have to increase our joy. So what do most people think automatically when they say that? Oh, you got to be happy in Adar. That's not what it said. It said you always have to be happy. And in Adar, you have to increase your joy. It doesn't say Mishenichnas Adar Tiya Besimcha. It's Mishenichnas Adar Marbin Besimcha, which means Simcha is the given, and then you have to be Marbe. So when the Mishnah says Al Tarbe Sicha Imeisha, that means that there is some level of Sicha that goes on between husband and wife. But we can't be Marbe. We can't do too much of it. Well, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? What's considered Marbe? What's considered too much? What's normal? And what's considered too much? My fifth problem. What's sicha? Oh, talking? I'm in the middle of Ulpan now. As far as I know, talking is lidaber. Right? Dibur. Not sicha. To give a sicha, it's like to give a speech. That's the way I would think that it's used. Some other kind of way, but a dibur, it's a conversation. Why are you telling me, putting it in terms of sicha, al tarbe sicha? What's the sicha that I'm not allowed to have too much of? It doesn't seem that I can't have more of dibur. I can't have too much dibur. It doesn't seem I can't have too much other kind of interaction, but it's a sicha interaction that the Mishnah is trying to warn me against. What's that? Gorem ra'ah, that if I talk too much to my wife, it's going to cause me bad? Really? Could one ever talk enough to one's wife? What does that mean? Gorem ra, it's going to cause evil. Now, I understand also that Mishnayos were really written for men. So, maybe there's some really bad hidden meaning here. I don't know, like some negative attitude towards women that's coming through here. Okay, number 7. It says that it's going to cause me bittul Torah. So think about that for a second. What's bittul Torah? Wasting time for the study of Torah. That's bittul Torah. It's the worst transgression that a Jew could do, by the way. The worst transgression. If you have something to do, and you could be learning Torah, and instead you're doing some other nonsense, we're not talking about doing something else important, but we're doing something that's really just a choice. It's really just a nonsense. But you could be learning Torah. That's called bittul Torah. Now that doesn't mean, by the way, vacation. It doesn't mean leisure time. Leisure time is important to be able to be able to fuel oneself, to be able to continue on doing what you're meant to be doing. Leisure time is a very important structure. It's a very important part of the existence of a Torah Jew. But there's a point at which it's no longer leisure time. There's a point at which you can now be returning to your studies, and if you don't return to your studies, that's bittul Torah. Well, why is it that sicha, if you have this sicha with your wife, so then that's going to lead you to bittul Torah? Anything that's not learning Torah is going to lead you to bittul Torah. It's not just sicha with my neighbor. Sicha with somebody on the street is also going to be bittul Torah. Right? Watching a football game could also be bittul Torah. So what does it mean that don't talk to your wife, because that's going to lead you to bittul Torah? Anything that's not learning Torah is bittul Torah. So what's that message? And then finally, it says that talking to your wife too much is going to get Gehenna. First of all, we don't talk like that. Don't do that because you go to hell. We don't talk like that. That's not Judaism. We never talk like that. We never say that. Every once in a while we throw in, Yoresh Gehenim, you'll get Gehenim. Just I want you to understand it's really bad, but we don't. That's not the way we talk. When I teach the laws of family purity to Chassanim, I teach them the way it appears in the Torah, whatever. And I always teach them about the concept of kares, the concept of extirpation. And I say to them that this is the first and the last time you're going to hear this, because that's not the reason that we keep these laws. It's got nothing to do with the fact that they are subject to kares. It's not why we keep them. We keep these laws because God wants us to keep the laws. We don't focus on that. Oh, don't do that because you go to hell. Right? We just don't talk like that. So why would the Mishnah, again, we're trying to shore in a broken nation. Why would we talk like that? And sicha is going to get you hell? Really? Like that's the quid pro quo? Because you had too much sicha with your wife, you're going to Gehenna? Stop that. It's not a capital crime that you would get Gehenna for. It's not something that's going to destroy your soul that way that you're going to get Gehenna for. What in the world does that mean? Okay, let's see if we can build this up a little bit. And I'm praying that I'm going to be able to do this in 15 minutes. Because the first thing that has to be understood is that this Mishnah, and if I step away a little bit from the way we explained yesterday's Mishnah and look at it in a little bit more of a general sense, these Mishnayos are talking about building a house. In yesterday's Mishnah, we talked about how your house has to be opened to the, it has to be a beis va'ad chachamim, a house that is a gathering place for the sages. It has to be, you have to sit in the dust of their feet. You have to drink thirstily of their words. Your house has to be a house that's conducive for learning. And then in today's Mishnah, we're talking about that it has to be open to people, and that there's got to be poor people in there, and that there has to be the right kind of atmosphere inside of kedusha and tara, of holiness and purity. So I think that before we move on, we need to talk about what a bias is. What is a house? A house, first and foremost, is what's called a reshus hayachid. It's a private domain. What defines a private domain? So what defines a private domain is what is called mechitzos, walls. If you have a public highway, that's a public domain. And then in the middle of that public highway, there is a house. In that house, with 4 walls, or even a mound that is a certain size, it's as if it has walls around it, that becomes what's called a reshus hayachid, a private domain. A private domain doesn't mean one person lives there, but a private domain means that it is blocked off from the street, blocked off from the public. It's got mechitzos, it's got walls, it's got barriers, and it separates itself from the public. The truth is, an entire city could be called a Rishus HaYachid. That's the way we make Eruvin on Shabbos, without going into too many details. But the way we make an Eruv on Shabbos is that string and pole that exists around the city is a small part of the Eruv. The major part of the Eruv is the fact that everybody in the city joins together to become one unit, to become one entity. And what those walls do is that they create everybody inside of that city as being one klal, with many pratim, with many pieces, but it becomes one unit. It's not about the amount of people that are there. It's about the fact that there are walls and barriers. And once you have those walls, everything that's inside is joined as one. If there are no mechitzos, you could have one person in a field, but he's in a Rishus HaRabim, he's in a public domain. You can have walls, and you can have 1,000 people, and it's Rishus HaYachid. It becomes a personal, private domain. Step one in building your house is Yihi Beischa Beisvad, is that your Rishus HaYachid, your private domain, has to reek of Torah. As we talked about yesterday, when you walk into a Beis Vad, like you walk into a perfumery, it sticks on you. Step number one to building a house is that your house has to reek of the atmosphere of Torah, of the atmosphere of Kedusha, the atmosphere of holiness, the atmosphere of godliness. Once that happens, then it can be Pasuach Lervacha. Then you have an entity in your home that is now capable of receiving more people. Because now, as people come in, your home has a definition. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what it reeks of in our house. And therefore, when you walk in, you become part of that entity. Avraham Avinu had every single nudnik in the world inside of his tent. He had idolaters, and he had deniers, and he had people that could care less about God, people that denied God. Everybody was a guest inside of Avram's home. How could Avram be so dangerous? How could he live so dangerously? Bringing all of those influences into the house. Because his house reeked of God. And once it reeks of God, once its foundation is godliness, now it's ready to bring people into it. When it's not defined, bringing people can destroy a home. It can destroy the very nature, the very foundation of what the home is. But when the home is founded on principles, and the home lives by those principles, it's now able to collect and to be able to bring in others. A house is ma'ached all the individuals. Happens to be that a woman has that ability greater than a man. The Gemara says that God gave 10 measures of speech to the world, and he gave 9 of them to the women. So nasty degraders always say, that's why women speak so much, that's why they talk. Don't be stupid. It's not what Chazal is saying. What Chazal is saying is that the koach hadibur, the power of speech, the ability to be able to communicate, that lies in the koach and the power of a woman. And therefore she was given 10 measures, she was given 9 of the 10 measures of speech, because she knows how to utilize them and can utilize them in order to be able to be ma'ached, in order to be able to bring together all of those individuals. Marriage flips a person from a person who is focused as an individual to a person who is now focused as a klal. A hostile takeover is that I take you into my home, I take you into my philosophy, and I make you me. And that we become one, but we become one because one of us has become diminished. One of us has become lost. That's not building a bias. Building a bias is that you come into my bias, you come into my home, and together we stand committed to the same things. Me perhaps doing it my way, you perhaps doing it your way, but our foundation is exactly the same, and that's how we become a klal. A klal is not a bunch of people that each have their own direction in life. A klal is a bunch of people that are committed to exactly the same thing. They might have their different ways of doing things, but that they are united in the sense that they are committed to exactly the same thing. What marriage does is that it adds another person committed to what I am committed to, and together we build a house on that foundation, to what the two of us are committed to. And that now allows us, once we have mechitzos, once we have walls, we have a definition, once we know who we are, now we can bring other people into our home and we can include them in our bias. You know, when a bride and groom get married at the Sheva Brachas, that we say you should build a bias neman b'Yisrael. Why don't we say you should be happy? You should have a nice life together, become a good couple. We talk about it in terms of bias because that's what a bias is. A bias is that the two of you should remain committed to the same values and ideals and build that life inside of those mechitzos, inside of those boundaries and walls. You should build that together. That's the definition of marriage. That it's taking our one and widening it to include another, and together we become one. An inclusive one, not a hostile takeover one where one disappears because it's swallowed by the other, but that the two together become one whole. We create our space, and now we can bring other people into it. You know, a lot of times people relate to their kids as extensions of themselves, and that they worry about their kids, but they're really worried about themselves. And this is a conversation for another time. But you can see this a lot of times, and I speak as an American, you can see this on the soccer field. In my shul, many people, they had Baruch Hashem, they had a Sunday league. Many people put their kid in the Saturday league also, but that's another story. But many people put their kid in the Sunday league, and soccer was like a huge thing. You go out to the soccer field, and you see some of the kids are running and playing, and then you see some kids are like, counting the clover leaves, and they're looking up at the sky, and the ball comes near them, they go run in the opposite direction, like they are not interested in being there. This conversation is what takes place when a parent says to the child, I enrolled you in soccer. Child says, why? I want to do ballet. So, no, you're playing soccer. But Ma, I don't want to play soccer. You're going to love soccer. I loved soccer as a kid. You're going to love soccer also. Kid goes out and he's miserable. And mom says to the kid, it'll get better next week. Mom doesn't have the kid's best interest in mind. She sees her kid as an extension of herself, and she says, I want for my kid what I had because I know it was good for me. Not looking at the kid saying, what's good for the kid? What's good for this child? What's going to be best for this child? I remember I once had a Rabbi, very, very, very yeshivish, and he got a set of drums for his kid. Oh, that's weird. It's just weird. And he encouraged him. He got him a teacher because he realized that this kid had an incredible amount of energy, and he needed the outlet. It happens to be the kid has turned into a very well-known principal and a very well-known mechanech. But if it wasn't for his father training him the way he needed to be trained, this kid would have been lost forever. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's really worried about ourselves, not worried about our children. I worry about them for what's meant to be is that I worry about them for the sake of them. How do I learn that? How do I learn how to treat my kids for the sake of them? So bring aniyim into your house and worry about the aniyim for them, for their well-being. Aniyim should be b'nei beischa. They should be like your children in the sense that just like an ani, you're not worried about him because of you. You're worried about him because of him. You care about him because of him. And when you see that, when you train yourself how to worry about people because of them, not because of me, not because of what it does for me. Unfortunately, marriage doesn't always teach us that, because a lot of times, unfortunately, marriage is based on the following principle. It's called I love fish. What does that mean? That means, you ever hear a person say, I love fish? So, person doesn't love fish, because if you loved fish, you would take it off the hook, you'd throw it back into the sea. What you love is, you love what fish does for you. I love the way fish makes me feel. Unfortunately, many relationships are based on that also. I love the way you make me feel. I love the way I feel around you. Not I love being with you because of who you are, but I love the way you make me feel. That's talking about the love of me, not the love of another. That's why bring aniyim into your house. Bring the poor people into your house. They smell, they don't have anything, they have nothing to contribute, and yet you're looking at them and saying, what's going to be best for you? That's the way you learn how to do that to your children. Now that you've got that, now, how do you relate to your wife? You have to see your wife as your completion. A man and a woman have to see each other as if they complete each other. They become one. And if that's the case, don't treat her like an object. Sicha is a low-level speech. It's a speech, a flirtatious kind of speech. Al tarbe sicha ima isha. Don't leave her on that level. She needs to be elevated. You need to see her for herself, for how unique she is. Not for what she does for you, but how unique she is as a person. And if that's the case, the mishna is teaching me how to build that home. First, put up the mechitzas. Second, make sure it smells of Torah. Now that it smells of Torah, now you can bring people in. Bring people in that you're going to be focused on their well-being, and now turn to your wife and to your children and focus on them for who they are. If you don't, you know what's going to happen? It says, a person says, this girl is for me. I'm going to finish in 1 minute. So this girl is a girl for me, right? This girl was good for him. So it's gorim ra la'atzmo. The him that he was trying to make happy, it's going to cause bad for that him. It's not going to make him happy. If you're all about taivas, if you're all about desires, you're all about fulfilling your own personal needs, there's no room for Torah. And a person like this is empty. A person like this is going down. Yorish Gehenim, because he's going down with nothing. That's what the Mishnah means. I don't know I did that last part very fast. I'll try to maybe just say it over again tomorrow a little bit slower, but that's what the Mishnah is teaching me. How do you build your house? Make it reek of Torah, put up walls, and now you're ready to bring everybody else inside so that you could focus on them, not on you.